Good morning, coffee drinkers. Welcome to Law Moment. As you know, I'm Hallie Zobel, an attorney at Private Corporate Counsel in Orlando, Florida. I'm so pleased to have a guest and a friend here this morning by the name of Dr. Sara Hoefler. I have known Dr. Hoefler for many years and watched her over the years grow and develop. She has served in the special needs community for well over 10, 15 years. And we're going to be asking her some questions this morning. But first, I'm going to give her an opportunity to speak to you and introduce herself. And then we're going to dive into the topic of supportive decision-making. I discussed that several weeks ago, the new law that came down in Florida. And in addition, Dr. Hoefler is going to tell us a little bit about what she does for a living in her role of supporting special needs people. Good morning, Dr. Hoefler. How are you?
I am great, Hallie. Thank you for having me here on Law Moment.
You're welcome. Would you tell us a little bit about your work and what you do in the special needs community?
Absolutely. So I am the owner of Dr. H LLC, and I wear two hats. So on one hand, I work with special needs people, primarily people on the autism spectrum, mid to high functioning, and I get them into the workplace. And then my other hat is I work with people who may or may not have autism, perhaps ADHD or some anxiety issues. I work with them in my role as executive and life coach to get them going on a good track.
Wow. Would you tell the audience of your experience with autistic children and your history?
Absolutely. So I've worked with special needs for the past 25 years. And 10 of those years I served as principal of a K-12 school for children with autism. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. And that's really where I got going on the importance of getting special needs people into the workplace.
Mm-hmm. And you said you've been doing this 25 years now?
Yep.
And gosh, hard to believe. Anything else you want to tell us before we dive into supportive decision making?
Sure. I think getting into the workplace for everybody, whether you're special needs or not, is exceptionally important just because of the lessons that we learn at work.
I agree. So today we're going to analyze and discuss just a little bit the supportive decision-making law that came out of Tallahassee. Have you had a chance to look at that or follow that law?
You bet. So Florida is going to be joining almost 20 other states in codifying supportive decision-making. Like you had touched upon, supportive decision-making is something that I've really been a part of for a very long time when working with my clients. But now that it's being codified, it brings the significance of it to the forefront.
Yes, and to tell you a little bit about the statute, the supportive decision-making allows people with, perhaps they're on the spectrum, have developmental disabilities. They're able to select certain people to help them make more difficult decisions. Maybe it's to purchase a vehicle. Maybe it's where to rent an apartment and help doing that. But the court doesn't necessarily have to take away their rights. And in fact, that's what the law is requiring of the courts. In guardianship court, where I go and practice, part of my practice, the court is now going to be required to make a determination as to the needs and abilities of the developmentally disabled person. And do they really need a guardianship? And I personally think that is fantastic. The put in place effective date is going to be this summer, July 1st, 2024. Have you had the opportunity to help with supportive decision-making for your client?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, this is something I do on a regular basis with all of my clients.
Well, what I find so interesting in talking to you about your work over the years and social situations is the employment and how you get these young people into employment and working. Tell us about that.
Right. So I am contacted sometimes by the family, sometimes by the client themselves, and sometimes by a psychiatrist or psychologist. I'm glad to work with them as well to follow through on treatment plans. And what happens is I come into the home and I find out, what is it that's holding us back from meaningful employment? Is it hygiene? Is it social? Is it something like time management? So whatever it is, we find the root of the problem and we work on it. So I'm not a psychiatrist and I'm not a psychologist. So I don't work on the why. I really come in and say, where are we now? Where do we want to go? And then I put the plan together on how to get there. And of course, that plan can change, and sometimes it does. But what happens is once we've ironed out things that are standing in the client's way of meaningful employment, then we get to work.
Do you find the clients want to be employed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And do you actually work with the businesses to gain the employment?
I do. I've got businesses with whom I've worked for several years that not only allow me to bring people in, but they also allow me to train them on site.
So you actually go to the workplace?
I do.
Wow. What does that look like?
Well, I've got a uniform. Whatever uniform my client is required to wear, I have the same one. I'll give you an example. I think that's the best way to do it. So I've been working with a woman in her 30s. We were at home figuring out, what she needed to work on in order to be able to be meaningfully employed. And in her case, that was being assertive, working on verbal and nonverbal communication skills, as well as time management. So once we've got the skills down pat, we've got to put them to work, literally, right? We've got to go into the workplace. So I contacted one of my contacts. I said, hey, I've got someone I think she'd be a great fit. I was allowed to come into the workplace with her, accompany her throughout her onboarding process, which she was very anxious about, but went through fantastically. And then get into the workplace with her while she was doing her initial training. And then I was able to give her that more intensive, individualized training that she needed in order to be successful. And I'm happy to report that this woman has not only been successful in the original position for which we've trained, she's now trained on her own in other positions within the company so she can be more versatile. And she has been gainfully employed now for several months and is doing very well.
I think that's fantastic. Now, Sara, you mentioned the anxiety. Of course, anyone starting a new job is anxious, but maybe even more so for someone on the spectrum. Had this young lady ever had employment before?
No, she had not. Her anxiety and some of the things that we had been working on had stopped her from being able to take that final step into long-term employment, but she's overcome those.
That's great to hear. Another area that you work in is education, helping clients meet educational goals. Does that include both high school and college?
Yes, both. So I work with young people and even not so young, right? I've had some senior clients as well. I'm a certified senior advisor. I work with educational goals because I feel that no matter whether you're 30 or whether you're 90, right, you have a inner need for self-actualization,
Yes.
right? So what I do, again, I come into the home, I say, okay, where are you at? And where you're at could sometimes be down in the dumps, right? Maybe we've got failing grades. Maybe we haven't been to school in a long time and we want to get back in. But no matter where the client is, we take them exactly where they are, right? I go in, I say, what's the goal? I put together a plan, a doable plan, all right, about how to get to that goal. And then we assess on the way. Is this appropriate? Is this still what I want to do? Is this too much? Do we need to pivot and make up a new game plan? But the main idea, Hallie, is we're always moving forward.
Does the client have input into the plan?
Absolutely. The client is the primary source of input for that.
Do you find these clients sometimes don't know how to study?
Yes, I see that quite a bit. And I've got some of them, some of my students have good grades, right? They know how to pass a test, but they don't know how to study and retain information. And usually where that starts to bite them is when they get into those higher level classes, especially in college, and they realize, wow, this is all building. This is not just a collection of gen eds now. I'm really building, and I don't have the ability to study in a way that can allow me to retain and apply information. So that's something I work on a lot with my clients, my college age ones.
Would you tell the audience about a success story you have with education?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I've got a lot of them, but I am going to tell you about one in particular. This is a man I've worked with for several years. He is on the spectrum. When I first met him, he had some issues with hygiene and social issues that were really holding him back from being able to get into the workplace, being able to function well within the family, or I'll say optimally within the family, and being able to function on a campus.
Obviously, he was intelligent.
Very much so. Very much so. I am proud to say that this man is graduating from college in May. I'm also proud to say he has held part-time employment now for the past 4 years at the same place. And the past 2 years, we have had internships that have been career-related that he's held down without problem.
And you've helped him apply for these internships?
Apply, Also come in when needed to coach him if there's a meeting that he's preparing for. So again, I am boots on the ground. I come into the home, what's going on, what do you need to get ready for? And again, having known him for several years, it just makes it all the easier to provide that supported decision making. Again, I've been doing it on the unofficial level for years.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fantastic. And this man leads me into the third area I'd like to discuss this morning that may interest the audience, living skills. This young man, you said, had issues with some basic hygiene and some things. How do you work with clients on the independent living skills and things of that nature?
Sure. So independent living skills are learned in the home. So I come to the home, and again, we just take a look. Where are the deficits? I'll often work with family as well. They've got very valuable input in most cases. I'll come in, I'll say, where are the deficits? We'll put plans together. We'll work on things like hygiene. We'll work on things, I call it becoming a good citizen of the home, right? Being able to handle laundry, being able to handle, I call them minor catastrophes of household living, right? When a pipe bursts, what do? Right? We prepare in advance for those. So when things do happen, people are ready to handle it. They've got a script in place if need be.
I know the audience might have this question. Do you help train in the kitchen?
I do. Yeah, that's part of it too.
What do you do in the kitchen?
Yeah, we work on hygiene in the kitchen. We work on food preparation, food safety, a balanced diet, what that looks like. So that's a big part of it too. And again, these are all things that I do in the home. Now, a lot of times with my high school or college age kids, I've got people who I work with online, right? Because you could study online these days with Zoom, no problem, right? So I've got clients here in Florida. I've also got them in several states, and I've got a couple international ones as well.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier psychiatrists and psychologists are a referral source to you?
Yes, sometimes I'll get a referral from a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but a lot of my referrals are word of mouth.
And your PhD is in education, right?
That's correct.
I understand. Well, very good. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up today?
Absolutely. Becoming a competent adult is the goal. No matter whether you're on the spectrum, whether you're special needs, whether you're not, right? And I am just very glad to be able to be part of that goal as a supported decision maker.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. That's been very informative. Audience, thank you for tuning in today for our show, Law Moment. You may be interested in Dr. Hoefler's services. She can be reached at our office, Private Corporate Counsel, and I will forward on the information to her. We can be reached at 407-647-7887 or my email, hzobel@pcc.law. As always, we appreciate you listening in and look forward to seeing you at the next Law Moment.